Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Daddy Issues. This is episode 2. Before I get too far, I really want to thank you guys for the overwhelming support and acceptance and really the kind words that you guys shared after the last episode. More importantly, I really want to thank those that took a moment to share their experiences because I really feel like there's no better medicine or therapy than to hear stories or testimonials from people who have been through very similar circumstances. I really don't want this in any way to be a woe is me story, just a me complaining. That's not my purpose with these episodes. I really want this to be an opportunity for men, fathers, becoming men, like as a separate category, men becoming men, men and fathers, to really just sit down and have a conversation about everyday issues or scenarios and just our stories that go along with it. Because I, as I mentioned in the other episode, I don't feel that we talk about these things enough. And if this comment section can be a place where men can come to hash out their stories and their issues, then this will be that place. And I'm ready for that. So today's topic is one that, is really near and dear to me. It's one that's really taken over much of my existence, and that's raising a child as a fatherless father. I was not given the tools at a younger age that would have been an advantage at an older age, and this was a was an inherent issue. It wasn't until later in life where I really needed to soul search and ask myself what my purpose was and what kind of vision I was going to instill in my child. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't have all those answers before I had a child. When my wife and I were having our boy, it's a two-part story because the first time my wife and I attempted to have a child, we we were 9 weeks in, 11 weeks. I'm not really, I can't remember, and she miscarried, which at the time I had no idea happens to a very large percentage of couples. I didn't know miscarrying or miscarriage is something that a lot of women actually face, and inherently men have to go through as well. And this was absolutely devastating. Although at the time my wife and I, we weren't planning on having a child. It was through this experience that I realized something inside me was beginning to change, because I never realized that I had so much emotion or connection to at the time this mystical creature. Although she was pregnant, it's nothing more than just a few cells or organisms or what have you in the womb at the time. So there was really even nothing there, but I had already started to feel an attachment, almost a sense of pride or duty that I had to fulfill my role as a man before I started to raise a child. And once we lost that opportunity, I knew for sure that this was the step in life that I inevitably needed to take. And so when my wife and I we tried for for the second attempt, we were ready. We knew this was the course of action that we wanted to take, and we tried. And let me tell you though, you want to talk about questioning your masculinity or questioning your existence. When your wife miscarries with your baby, that really puts into question what you're able to put or provide or bring to the table. Because, you really look inward when this kind of stuff happens, because, yeah, you look at yourself as a little lesser, because it's like, well, is this my fault? Am I the reason that my wife was unable to carry a baby? These are things that I know I question. But the reality of the situation is no, no. This is a regular thing. This is actually a regular occurrence. I wish I knew the statistics, but if I'm not mistaken, the majority of women miscarry their first time trying to conceive a child. Many women don't even know they miscarry the first time. These are all things I didn't know, and these are all things that I would have to come to learn as time would go on, because then I had to answer questions. It's like, well, why couldn't my wife have a child? What did I do wrong? What can I do better? Is it because of some of the habits that I have? Is it because, do I drink too much? Is it, what could it be? And it was none of those things. It was none of those things, and so needless to say, um, once my son was, well, in fairness, being a man, and providing for your wife happens a lot, and providing for your child happens long before your child is actually born. Your wife is a vessel. She is your oyster, if you will, and there's a pearl inside there that needs to be taken care of, needs to be provided for. Your wife, your baby's mama, she needs to be taken care of. Her environment needs to be perfect to essentially conceive a child. This isn't magic. It's not a mystery on how this stuff happens. We've gotten pretty good at it. And so my job at the time was to ensure that she was healthy, that she was eating properly, that I was bringing home some good food, that I was encouraging her, I was motivating her, because I can only imagine the amount of hormones that she was going through, and the emotional swings, and what have you. So it was my duty to ensure that her world was ready for her. And so that included making sure that her meals were ready. That was in, she was quite sick during her pregnancy, so I had to make sure, that she had a clean path to the bathroom. I make sure that the bed was ready. These kind of things. And none of that relies on you going to work and bringing home a paycheck. There, the value, or what you bring to the table, is so much more than the money. Now, of course, money is a huge aspect of providing for a family. Without money, you better be really, really creative, because you're going to need those skills to be able to provide without having an income. I'm not saying you can't do it. I'm just saying it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. But that's only one portion of the equation when it comes to being a provider for your family. And so it was my duty to ensure that, my wife was comfortable, healthy, motivated, and encouraged to be able to push through the next 9 months. And so, that was a whole trial and tribulation all in its own. And if there's any advice, and I don't really want to give advice too often, because I'm in no position to give advice, but if there's any advice I can give to any up and coming parents, the 9 months of pregnancy is something that should not be overlooked. You should not rush through this process. Really slow down and appreciate what you're doing at that moment. Being pregnant, or in my case, having a wife. Now, we weren't actually married at the time, but she was my pride and joy. She is my everything. Take those 9 months in as much as you can. You're not going to get another opportunity to be either pregnant with your first child, or pr- without child. The next 9 months are going to change. And a lot of my friends told me that your life is going to change forever, but no one really reiterated or really knew how or explained how it was going to change, but just told me it was going to change. And so these are the things that having a father really would have been nice, because I missed out on a lot of those things that would have prepared me for those 9 months. Those 9 months would have prepared me for fatherhood. So I really, I guess the advice that I would give is just slow down, appreciate those 9 months, because life is going to change. It's going to change drastically after that. So once my son was born, I kind of started to realize that I was very ill equipped for the existence of my child. I had no idea what I was getting into. As I had said, people told me life was going to change, but nobody told me how life was going to change. Nobody told me that my emotions would be impacted. I am so much more emotionally aware, emotionally cautious, and in terms of like when my son was born, it's like all of a sudden now your priorities changed. You can't just be focused on you anymore. You need to be focused on them. When you have children, your focus is not you, it's them. And that's something I had no idea. I was still, I was young. I think I was 22 when I had my son. So I was knee deep in labor work and a career. I was going to school. Like I was on a whole other mission in life. And when you have a child, you need to be prepared to make them your primary focus. It's not you. And so that was one of the biggest learning moments that I had that I was ill equipped with. You know, one of the other things was is I didn't realize how emotionally vulnerable I was going to become. Now when it comes to my child, I'm over the top when it comes to being cautious, when it comes to their safety, when it comes to them, going out into the world all on their own, whether it's to go to school, whether it's to just, go hang out with friends. You're constantly worried and you're constantly nervous that something is going to happen to them. These are the things that I wish someone had told me. I could have prepared myself. I could have understood that it's gonna be okay. They can go out and they're gonna be just fine because you're hoping that the things that you've instilled in them are gonna guide them in the right direction. So once my son came around, that's when I knew I was ill prepared. I was ill prepared. And now I'm not saying that everyone is well prepared when they have a child. I don't think that's the case actually in many cases. I don't think you can be, fully in a position to bring in children. If you think you want to be financially stable, well, when are you financially stable for a child? If you're financially stable for a child, are you emotionally stable for that child? Sure you're working, but are you home for that child? Are you able to take care of the mother of that child? Because that is going to be important. I am a huge believer in it that strong two-parent homes are what raise great children. Strong women and strong men play very important roles when it comes to raising children. And not having one of those roles in my life made me seek that out in other directions. And some of those directions were music, for example. I really found solace when I was young in really aggressive, the Marilyn Mansons, the Marshall Mathers, your Slipknots. These are aggressive, not necessarily all aggressive. Blink 182. I found solace in music that kind of spoke to me in regards to people that understood what I was going through, and not only understood but had gone through it too. The stories that I would hear in the music would let me know that everything was going to be okay. Not only had these people been through the same things and suffered some of the same injustice, travesties, if you will, or bad dealings. I don't know how to describe it. They turned out okay. They managed to have great careers and made great music, turned into be very successful artists. So it's led me to believe that maybe I could be successful too. Didn't have anyone to tell me that I would be successful too. I just had to find it. And then as I got older, I started to find more connection with hip hop music, because hip hop music taught me to protect, it taught me to be a man. It taught me to stand up for what I believe in. And although you have to find these messages, those messages are there. And as I would progress through time, I would then start to find more connection with not just hip hop music, but now country music. Country music almost now taught me how to be a family man, how to be a provider, how to work hard, and how to love your wife and raise good kids. And these are things that I think I think help a lot of people. Whether you find that connection with music, whether you find that connection with art, whether you find that connection with sports or exercise, or you'll find that discipline, if you will, that will that will help guide you. And some people can find it, some people don't. And if it wasn't for music, music played such an instrumental role for me, that if it wasn't for music, I really don't think I would have made it as far as I did, because I could close the door, I could put on my headphones, and I could just escape. I could escape the constant yelling, and the constant negativity, and I could just go to my own place where nothing else mattered, where I could just be free of of and just alone with my own thoughts. And I spent a lot of time in that place, a lot of time with my headphones on, just away, either just walking or just in my room. And that was my gospel. And I'm very thankful for that. I'm very thankful for that. And I'm starting to notice that music plays a large portion in my son's role, plays a large role in my son's life as well. He loves to use music to get him motivated. He loves music while he's playing and while he's working in the yard. It's like music speaks to you in ways that I feel like conversation doesn't. And I'm a huge proponent to having music in your home. Not all music, all music has a different message, or music all has different messages. So you got to find the message that speaks to you. But music is just it allows for that escape. So I'm very thankful for that, and that is one of the foundations to the building blocks that allowed me to figure out what was the path of manlyhood that I wanted to take. And so now that my son's born, he's not only walking. My boy's 12 now. Actually, as of recording this is his 12th birthday today. Happy birthday, my little boy. It's more than just putting on music now. I I want to raise my son into manlyhood so the world doesn't. I don't want him to just grow up and get older. I want to experience it with him. I want to teach him. I want to guide him. I want to provide him all those things that I didn't have. I am blessed in the way that I had the ability to learn inversely, if you will. I learned how to be a father by learning what not to do. I realized that not having a father in the home, I had no solace. I had nobody to guide me, to teach me. No one taught me how to shave. Nobody taught me how to fish. Nobody taught me how to drive. Nobody taught me how to talk to girls. These are all things that I had to learn all by myself. And you know, these are things that I don't want my son to have to learn. Hollywood is quick to try to guide your children, And I don't agree with the message coming out of Hollywood. So I refuse to let Dora the Explorer or whoever's on the Disney Channel, whatever, raise my child. He can watch whatever he wants, but I would like to be the one that instills values into my boy. And the way to do that is to be a provider for him, to be a protector for him, but to also be a confidant for him. I want him to be able to come to me with his problems. If he can't come to me with his problems, where's he going to go? You know, that's what bothers me. I want to be that place to go. And in order to be a provider and a protector, I need to do more than just work. And that's what, you know, my father, if you will, you know, he was in the military and he was gone always. He was always overseas, he was always on duty, always. And when he was home, he was emotionally non-existent. Didn't, you know, very little time for family, no conversation, no real conversations with him. That left me with a lot of questions. It leads you to do a lot of trial and error. And if I can allow my son to avoid all the error, or at least some of the error, then I'm on the right track, you know. But that requires being more than just a financial provider, because you know there was a time, you know, there was a time where, you know, dads were the only ones that worked, right? Mom stayed at home, dads worked. They worked from 9 to 5. They would come home, and you know they had a very clear role to play in the family. That's not the case anymore, you know. In a day and age where women are working and outpacing men in a lot of careers, it is not unusual to have a mom being the breadwinner of the home. So as a man, being a provider financially, that's not that you have more of a role to play, you know, and that's very important. So it needs to be more than just making money. You need to you need to be a provider in terms of being emotionally available. You need to be mentally available, and in fairness, you have to be there in a way that lets your children know that they're free to take risks, but there's going to be someone there's going to be someone there to pick them up no matter what. And and that feeling of having a protector is one that, you know, it's one that I wish I had. Because there's a lot of lonely days, a lot of lonely nights, you know, when you make a mistake at school, you know. Well, you know, I made some mistakes. I was a bad kid. No father figure led to a situation where, you know, where I was lashing out emotionally, and there was nobody there to sit me down and just say, "Hey, what's your vision? What are you doing this for? What's your code of conduct?" These are questions that I just needed to be asked by a man, you know, and 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 I just didn't get it. I didn't get it. So these are things that I want to ask my son. I want to ask him, you know, what is your vision? Where do you see yourself in life? You know, what's your code of conduct? How are you going to hold yourself accountable? And what's your cause? What are you doing it all for? These are questions that maybe you might not have answered. I know I'm still searching for the answers, but I know that that my vision as a father for my son is that I want to see him succeed. I want to see him be the best that he can be. I want to see him explore the world knowing that there's always going to be someone there behind him if things get dark, you know? Now I'm not always going to pick him up when he falls, cuz sometimes he's got to learn that too, you know? Sometimes he's got to pick himself up, you know? But it doesn't mean I won't be there for him when he does, you know? And that's important. I don't want to create a bubble around him. That's not my mission. I don't want to create a bubble boy. I feel like that's a problem with a lot of kids is unfortunately, they're raised in a bubble. They're raised to believe that their opinion is the only one that matters, that they're the highest level of human being, and that everybody else is subservient. But that's not the truth. The reality is that I want my boy to know that he is one amongst many, although he is just one star amongst the galaxy. He's my star, you know, and that's important. That's important. Having that net to fall back on is is irreplaceable. You know, it's just I really feel like boys, people will do better if they know that they'll be far more willing to jump if they know that there'll be somebody there to catch them. And that's what life's all about. It's taking adventures, taking risks. And I want my boy to do that. I want him to be adventurous. I want him to get out and into the world, and I want him to explore. I don't want him to be afraid. That's not what I'm looking for. And although I want him to grow and be a man, I don't want him to be a man right away. I think being a child is very important, very important. You have no responsibilities. Your creativity and your imagination are free of any restraints. That's what it's like to be a child. That's what you're supposed to provide for your children. Room for and an environment for them to be a child. It needs to be safe, it needs to be secure, and it needs to be a place of confidence. It needs to be a place where they can come home. I remember telling my son too that when he's in the dressing room, can he just open up and open up with the guys and just say, hey, you know what, guys, I'm feeling a little upset, I'm feeling a little depressed today. Of course he can't. His answer was, oh, I don't think so. Of course you can't. You can't just always hash out your issues, or you can't always word vomit your problems. People outside your home aren't going to listen to you, and they shouldn't have to. In fairness, they're not your friends. It's just people, you know. Um, but when you come home and you have an issue or you have a problem, you know, being able to work it out with a family, to have my boy and work it out with his dad, how to talk to girls, how to drive, how to shave. I want him to be a man about it when it comes to girls. I want him to be polite. I want him to try to not show off. I want him to be confident in his own skills, and I want him to find a woman that respects him. I want him to find a woman just like his mother, who is someone who loves him, who loves his father, and is willing to do anything for their family. And there is nothing less than that out there. There should be nothing less. And I think if he has the confidence early on, when he gets and as he transitions into dating, I think he'll respect himself to a point where his his spouse or his mate or his girlfriend or what have you has to respect him as well. And I think that's fair. And that level of respect should be mutual. The love that a woman can provide, the love that a woman can provide for a family is equal and as important than what a man can bring and provide for a family. And they're both needed. It's not a surprise that that the majority of well mannered and most developed or best developed children come from two parent homes where there's a male and a female, man, a mother and a father. And this is something that I think needs to happen more and more. Um, we're losing fathers in the home at a ridiculous rate. Uh, the statistics that suggest that 40% of homes don't have fathers in them. That's that's remarkably large. 40% of homes. And maybe that statistic is misrepresented, but the reality is that in today's day and age, I believe where we have a lot of troubled children, in some cases doing incredible crimes against humanity, are being raised in fatherless homes. This is not shocking to me. These are children that need guidance. They need the support of a father, and they need the guidance and support of a father who was raised by a good quality father. You know, the fact that I made it out is incredible. It's amazing. You know, not only do I think that I'm an okay father, I think I'm a pretty good provider. You know, I've always got work to do. I've always got to work to try to be the best version of myself. But I did all of that without a father in the home. I'm the anomaly, and that's crazy to think that there are people that have had it probably even better or better than I did that are still struggling with becoming a father because they were lacking some portions or some elements of their father. And so, as I had mentioned at the beginning, if there's any if there's a story or if there's something that you think you can speak to or share with others, please do so, because if this, the statistic of 40% of homes or families don't have fathers in them, that's tragic. That's that's tragic, and that's a statistic that needs to change, and it changes by dads raising their kids and not allowing Hollywood or the world to do it for them. That I refuse to let the world raise my child. I will raise my child, and I will provide for my wife so that nobody else has to. What a great episode. What a great episode. If there's anything that you feel as if you can add to the conversation, please do so. Please do so. I know that I have a lot to learn as I progress through fatherhood. My boy is only 12. I've only been a father for 12 years, and I'm going to be a father for hopefully another 75. But I hope that I can use the tools that I've managed to obtain in a way that's going to allow me to raise a very respectable, polite, productive young man. And I know I'm going to have a ton of questions as my son gets older. And not to mention, being a father's only half the equation. If I ever get the blessings to be a grandfather, well, I can only imagine the the uh, the experiences and adventures that's gonna bring. They say that being a grandparent is the best part because it's all the fun of being a parent without all the responsibilities. Is that true? Is that true to all the grandfathers out there? Can you speak to that for me? I'd love to know, because I'm gonna be taking you up on that. But I do want to thank you guys for listening. As I mentioned, please feel free to use the comment section as your way to connect and or just share your story and connect with others that have been through similar situations. I want to thank you guys for watching. That's everything today for episode 2 of Daddy Issues. If there's any topics of conversation that you would like us to dive into, please feel free to get a hold of me. You can do that in the comment section below. But until next time, thank you for watching. Stay safe and take care. Peace.